In the sparkling heart of Beverly Hills, where appearance is everything and first impressions can determine your success or your failure, a simple act of prejudice was about to dismantle a carefully constructed facade of superiority. What happened that evening at Lumiere would become a lesson in humility that no one present would ever forget, especially Ashley Martinez, the waitress who made the grave mistake of judging a book by its cover. The evening began like any other at Lumiere, one of the most exclusive restaurants in Beverly Hills. The crystal chandeliers cast their warm glow over the meticulously set tables while the soft notes of a grand piano filled the air. The restaurant was a symphony of elegant whispers, clinking glasses, and occasional bursts of refined laughter. Ashley Martinez stood at her station, observing her domain with the expert eye of someone who believed she belonged to the elite rather than serve them. At 28, she had carefully built her image. Her black uniform always impeccably pressed, her dark hair pulled back into a flawless bun, and her makeup subtle yet perfect. She was proud to work at Lumiere, even though her pride had long crossed the line into arrogance. Table 12 needs a wine refill, she instructed a junior waiter, her tone carrying the authority she had earned in 3 years of service. And remember, we serve from the right, always from the right. She smiled to herself, enjoying the way new staff members rushed to meet her exacting standards. The restaurant's glass doors opened silently, letting in a gust of cool evening air as a lone man walked in quietly, almost apologetically. His appearance caught Ashley's attention immediately, and not in a good way. He wore jeans, a simple black t-shirt, and a leather jacket that had seen better days. His long dark hair was slightly unkempt, and his boots were scuffed. Ashley's perfectly shaped eyebrows furrowed. Lumiere was not some casual restaurant chain. They had standards to uphold. She watched as the man approached the host stand, where she was covering the dinner break for their regular hostess. "Good evening," he said softly, his voice gentle and modest. "A table for one, please." Ashley gave him her practice smile, the kind that never reached her eyes. "I'm sorry, sir, but do you have a reservation?" Her tone subtly suggested that he must be in the wrong place. "No, I don't," he replied, seemingly unfazed by her barely concealed disdain. "I see," Ashley drawled, letting the words hang in the air. "Well, this is Lumiere. We're one of the most exclusive restaurants in Beverly Hills. Our main courses start at $200. She emphasized the price, hoping it would make him leave. Instead, the man simply nodded. "That's fine. Is there a table available?" Ashley's smile stiffened. "Let me check availability." She made a show of consulting her tablet, even though she knew perfectly well that several tables were free. "We have a table in the back section." She hoped the location would discourage him, but once again, he just nodded. "That would be perfect, thank you." As she led him through the restaurant, Ashley deliberately took the longest route, making sure he passed by the well-dressed diners who glanced up from their meals to stare at him. She could practically feel their judgmental gazes, and it gave her a sense of satisfaction. This would teach him to know his place. The table was the worst in the restaurant, right by the kitchen doors, where the clatter of dishes and the shouting of chefs would disrupt any attempt at a peaceful dinner. "Here you go," she announced, dropping the menu onto the table with just a bit more force than necessary. "Your waiter will be with you shortly." She turned to leave, then paused, unable to resist adding, "Just to confirm, sir, you're aware of our pricing structure?" The man looked up at her, his eyes calm and kind. "Yes, I am. Thank you." Something about his composure irritated Ashley even more. People like him were supposed to be intimidated by places like Lumiere. They were supposed to feel uncomfortable, out of place. But this man seemed perfectly at ease, and that annoyed her more than she cared to admit. As she walked away, she stopped at the service station, where another waiter, Michael, was preparing drinks. "Can you believe the nerve?" she whispered, though loud enough to be heard. "Walking in here dressed like that? I give him 10 minutes before he makes up an excuse and leaves." Michael glanced at the man, then back at Ashley. "Maybe we should just serve him like any other guest." "Please," Ashley scoffed. He'd probably saved for months just to try to impress someone. Well, he chose the wrong restaurant for that. What Ashley didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the man in the worn leather jacket was Keanu Reeves, who had quietly acquired a controlling stake in Lumiere 6 months earlier. He preferred to observe his establishments incognito, believing it was the only way to see their true character. And right now, he was seeing quite a lot. As the evening progressed, Ashley's behavior became increasingly inappropriate. She forgot to bring water to the table, took an extraordinarily long time to take his order, and when she finally did, her comments were laced with condescension. Wagyu beef is extremely sophisticated, she explained as if speaking to a child. It might be a bit advanced for some palates. She emphasized the word advanced while casting another look of disapproval at his casual clothing. I'll take it, he said simply. Medium rare. Certainly, Ashley replied, her tone suggesting she doubted he even knew what medium rare meant. And for wine, we have an extensive collection, although I should mention that our wines start at $200 a bottle. The Chateau Margaux, $25.15, please. Ashley's smug smile wavered slightly. That was a $2,000 bottle of wine, and he had ordered it without even glancing at the wine list. But she quickly recovered, convincing herself that he must have heard the name somewhere and was just trying to show off. Very well, sir, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I'll just need to verify your payment method before placing such a substantial order. Instead of being offended, the man reached into his worn leather jacket and pulled out a black American Express Centurion card. A card available by invitation only, rarer than any wine in Lumiere's cellar. Ashley's hand trembled slightly as she took it, but she couldn't resist reading the name aloud in disbelief. Keanu Reeves. Her voice trailed off as realization began to set in. She looked at him again. This time she really looked, and she felt her stomach drop. The kind eyes, the quiet demeanor, the effortless confidence. How had she not recognized one of Hollywood's most beloved actors? But Keanu wasn't done surprising her. Yes, he said calmly. Though tonight, I'm here less as an actor and more as an owner. I acquired Lumiere 6 months ago. I like to visit occasionally unannounced to see how things are really run. His voice remained gentle, but there was steel beneath the softness. And I must say, Ashley, I've seen quite a lot tonight. The crystal glasses in Lumiere seemed to tremble in the sudden silence that fell over the dining room. Ashley stood frozen, her carefully maintained composure cracking like thin ice under the summer sun. The black American Express card in her hand felt impossibly heavy as the weight of her mistake came crashing down on her. She stammered, abandoned by her usual eloquence. The dining room had grown so silent that even the kitchen staff had noticed, peeking through the service doors with curious expressions. Keanu Reeves sat quietly in his chair, watching her with the same gentle expression he had worn all evening. But now, that gentleness felt different. It wasn't meekness, as she had mistaken it for. It was the quiet confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. Perhaps, he said softly, we should continue this conversation somewhere more private. He gestured toward the restaurant's private dining room. His movement caused several nearby diners to suddenly become fascinated with their plates, pretending not to watch. Ashley's legs felt like lead as she followed him, painfully aware of the whispers trailing behind them, the piercing gazes of her colleagues who had witnessed her behavior all night. Michael, the waiter she had brushed off earlier, couldn't quite hide his satisfied smirk as she passed. The private dining room was a sanctuary of rich mahogany and deep burgundy wallpaper, typically reserved for Hollywood power lunches and celebrity celebrations. Now it felt like a courtroom, with Ashley as the defendant, waiting for judgment. Please, have a seat. Keanu gestured to one of the plush chairs, his voice still kind, which somehow made it worse. Ashley would have preferred anger. She knew how to handle anger, but this calm disappointment was far more devastating. Mr. Reeves, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't even know where to start with my apology. He raised a hand, silencing her gently. Leaning forward slightly, his eyes locked onto hers. Help me understand, he said, why you thought it was acceptable to treat someone the way you treated me tonight. Ashley's mouth opened and closed several times before she could form any words. I was just trying to maintain the restaurant standards. Our clientele expects a certain level of what? Keanu interrupted, his voice still gentle, but now laced with something sharper. Exclusivity? Or was it elitism you were trying to uphold? Outside in the main dining area, the usual dinner service continued, but there was an undercurrent of tension. The waitstaff moved between tables with exaggerated care, straining to catch any fragments of conversation from the private room. Regular customers who had witnessed Ashley's behavior earlier were now engaged in hushed discussions, sharing their own experiences with her particular brand of judgment. You know, Keanu continued, I bought Lumiere because I believe in its potential to be more than just another exclusive Beverly Hills restaurant. I saw an opportunity to create a space where exceptional food could bring people together, regardless of how they looked or where they came from. Ashley felt tears sting her eyes. Sir, I didn't know. That's exactly the point, he said firmly. You didn't know who I was, and that shouldn't have mattered. Every person who walks through those doors deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, whether they're wearing Armani or military surplus. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Marcus Chun, Lumiere's general manager, stepped inside, his face tight with anxiety. Mr. Reeves, I was just informed of the situation. I want to assure you that this behavior is completely unacceptable, and thank you, Marcus, Keanu said, his tone making it clear that now was not the time for damage control. But I'd like to finish my conversation first. Ashley. Marcus nodded quickly and withdrew,